a big supplement company, or in general, got a big Arnold plan. We got a 10x30 booth. We're getting it custom set up. John's going to be there, our giant mountain man. John Rivas is going to be turning pro in the Arnold Amateur, and I just Brandon Curry just signed on. I'll be prepping him for the Arnold, so I'm pumped about that because I wanted to prep that dude for 15 years.
Oh, really? You're working with him?
Yeah. He's a really cool guy. He reached
That's
out.
awesome.
I think he said he didn't want to go to Oxygen. He didn't want to go overseas again. He always got kids. His son's a freshman in high school. He's already got offers from Purdue and Kentucky for football because he's just a stud football player. So he wants to be. He don't want to be away. He's got his family and stuff. So I was like, yeah. He said he almost contacted me last year. I said I'm glad you did it this year because he's one guy I wanted to prep forever. I've watched him really closely for whatever reason, and you can kind of see the different peaks and how his look changes. And so I've had some ideas on it, and I'm real excited. So yeah, hopefully we'll have the Arnold Open winner, the Arnold Amateur winner, and one of the top 500 booths in the expo.
Where's your booth at?
Shit, I can't remember. We're not by Chase's. We're it's laid out like this, and there's one stage here and the stage here. We're kind of by that, not by that stage, but kind of off a middle aisle. It's a 10x30, so we have a corner. And then three booths length along the walkway. It's a good spot. It's a pretty good spot. I can't remember we may be by Rise a little bit.
Yeah,
I don't even remember anymore. You have to set that up so early. I went like the day after the Olympia and tried to get scheduled, and half the stuff was already booked.
Well, that's a big show, man. It's bigger than the Olympia.
Yeah, no, we're pumped. Because we'll be finishing the Generation Iron documentary there. So kind of the plan. All right, Roman's checking on. What's up, Roman? What's up?
How you doing, Roman?
Good. I think with the documentary, the plan is because we had Chase booths, and I kind of like hijacked it the day before when it was all empty, and they filmed us putting a couple T-shirts down on the table, and so I think that'll be like the intro, and then hopefully the kind of the ending of the documentary is our real like a legit booth at the Arnold, and then hopefully 2 big wins.
Jack wants to know if you're going to answer questions today. I guess we can answer some questions, right?
Who, me or Roman?
Anybody.
They want Roman to answer. How many carbs you eat today, Roman?
Roman's got all the good stories.
So I had a bad day today. I was a little sick to my stomach today. So it was only a 950.
I had 150 so far.
You need to prep Roman too, Justin.
Man, that would be a blast. That'd be just an experiment, just from an just watching standpoint. I just want to see the food documentation.
But Justin's working with Brandon Curry now, getting him ready for the Arnold.
For the Arnold.
No shit.
Yeah, I'm pumped about that. Yeah.
So Brandon.
Yeah.
At my pro debut, that was in Prague.
Uh-huh.
One week after the Olympia in 2015, and I placed 11th. That was the first, and all the 10 guys ahead of me were in the Olympia the week earlier. I was the best of the guys that sucked. So yeah, and Brandon was 10th.
Oh, no kid, yeah.
And then 4 years later, he wins.
Yeah, when he's on, he looks impressive. He's got those round muscles.
How old is he now? He's in his 40s, right?
Yeah. Are you, John? You got your sound on?
No, we can't hear you, brother.
Can't hear you. You know sign language?
Turn his phone sideways.
I speak.
Yeah, can you turn your phone sideways, John?
John's a rookie on these live streams.
We'll get him lined up.
We'll have to get him up to speed. This is my third one today.
No shit. Did you? What other ones did you do?
Well, just some other recordings today.
I think you're on, John. You there, John?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah. You're just a delay. Yeah, man. I did a podcast. I did Dave Palumbo's podcast months ago, I almost forgot about it, but I think he just launched it. But
Yeah,
I can
watched it
always
last
tell.
night.
I never even know. He never even told me, but I get like 5 diet signups. Like it must be doing really well. That's usually like when with a big podcast like that. That's usually how I find out they're published, because all of a sudden one morning I wake up and there's a bunch of new diet signups.
Yeah, I saw it last night. In my insomnia, working at 2 in the morning, I had it on in the background.
I didn't. It wasn't my finest moment. I was not on that day. I don't feel like, but
That's fine.
in my experience, that same thing with. Well, I say his name wrong. Fuad. I did Fuad's podcast in 2020, and I thought it was terrible. I think we like literally just walked in from a vacation, like landed the plane. I think I set my bags down, sat down, did the podcast. I thought I was terrible, but that was the biggest like exposure of any podcast I ever had. I had to like start like shut down my coaching because people weren't even asking. They were just signing up like crazy, and it exploded. But that was, I don't know what it was about that. Apparently, when I think I'm terrible is when other people like it. So I'm just gonna do shitty on every podcast from now on.
Don't worry. Don't worry. Fuad, after every podcast we do, he's like, "Do you guys think that one sucked? Should I delete it? Should I delete it? Let me just delete it."
Yeah.
Everyone is like, "No, don't."
Don't delete, just for the time. We did that with Dr. Scott Stevenson. I did a podcast with him, an hour and a half. We got done and we realized that like no one pressed the record button. That's just like a kick in the balls.
I've done that before. You know what's funny about that Fuad podcast, Justin? That's where I decided to sign up with you. I saw you on the Fuad podcast, and I'm like, yeah, I need to work with this guy.
So, yeah, apparently when I think I suck is when I'm at my best. Well, what it was I think he said something about egg whites, and I was thinking about if you eat raw like egg, if you drink egg whites, you can eventually get stripped of biotin. And I took that, and I think I said it was like not in a. I don't even remember what I said. There wasn't a complete protein, I think, and it never clicked with me. You do that when you start talking. I can't listen. I can't listen to my podcast because I talk too fast when I get excited about a topic. And there was one time I was talking about berberine, and I kept saying, instead of blood glucose or blood sugar, I kept saying blood berberine, and I did it over and over, and the whole topic didn't make any sense because I'm like, yeah, you got to get your blood berberine down to 96.
Why do you think I don't do live streams that often? I usually record. I'll go back and listen, and I'll be like, "Holy fuck, what was I saying, man? Was I drunk on this?"
It's like your brain saying one thing, your mouth saying a different thing. And apparently, I say the same things every time too. One of the first comments was like, "Great, another Justin podcast. Let's hear him say the same 5 things he says every podcast."
My first exposure to you was on an old Dave Tate pod. It was a Dave Tate from years ago. You guys were talking about when you dieted him down for the first time, and I remember talking about his super high carb days, and I was so intrigued by it. Yeah. And that's when I initially reached out to you back in 2018 or 19, whatever it was.
I like Dave's podcasts are fun because he gives you mushrooms beforehand. I'm kidding. No, his are fun though. They go forever though. Those are like 3-hour events.
The first podcast I heard from you was 2008.
No kidding.
Muscular development. It was just where you had to click it and then it had to load the whole podcast.
Yeah.
You could listen to it, and it was with Shelby Starnes. I think it was called the Troponin episodes.
Yeah, wild.
With the guy, he was talking like this. The guy that worked for Muscular Development.
Blackman?
He was kind of a fat guy, black hair. Didn't look like a bodybuilder at all, but he was like their camera, the guy in front of the camera. Well, I don't remember.
Steve Blackman used to talk, but he was thin.
It was a guy that worked for him.
Oh, man. I vaguely remember that because after that I ended up having a monthly article on muscular development for a while, Power Bodybuilding. That's where I learned that no one writes their own articles. I sent in my first article, and they were like, "Oh, you want to write your own?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I thought I had to." He's like, "Oh, well, we usually have Ron Harris write them." And I was like, "All right, that's how it works. I get paid. Ron does the work." But I wrote mine.
I remember, I think it was Dorian Yates. I saw him on an interview where somebody, it was in Flex magazine. They were talking about his diet or something, and he was like, it was all completely made up. It was nothing. I like they just wrote the article. I re-
2008.
Yeah, that's what I always tell people, like when I started coaching, because we just have video and everything on the internet now, but people forget. I remember the first video I ever saw on the internet was "Who Let the Dogs Out." Remember that song? It
Yeah.
was it was some video montage where they put like ugly people's faces up, and it took like 3 hours to download. It was like 1999 or something. But like,
Just like this.
yeah, and sync. There you go. Yeah, yeah. My 8-year-old loves them. Wait, is NSYNC the one from the Deadpool movie, the intro?
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh man, now she's an NSYNC fan because of that. She knows that whole dance now. But back then, do you remember, like, because you'd look at, like, someone would send you like a naked girl or something, and the thing would download like this, and it would stop right above the nipple, and you'd be like, come on, come on, we're almost there.
Yeah.
People are commenting on your shirt, Roman. They like it.
Yeah. Does anyone have this CD? That's the cover of their first album.
I'm sad to say I don't have it. I never went through my NSYNC phase.
I was a Backstreet Boys fan.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, I was to get her together fan. You plus me equals us. I know my calculus. I think that was a mock band.
One of those fake bands, like
Yeah,
fake
yeah.
Milli Vanilli.
Well, they were all. I mean, none of them were really that real. It's not like they were. None of them. They weren't really musicians.
God damn it, I can't remember the name of it. There's a documentary on Netflix about where was it, in Sweden? I think there's like a music hit factory where they write all the songs that all these pop singers. There's these couple guys, and there's a whole thing about it. Like they wrote like all the NSYNC and Backstreet Boys and Britney Spears, all these people, all these songs. They basically had like a formula for writing these songs.
Yeah, it's always breaking my heart. Love sent from up above. Love. It's always the same rhymes, right?
Well, NSYNC had Justin Timberlake, right? I always hated them because when I met my wife, well, I didn't meet her. I saw her at a party in college, and I was sitting on a couch with her best friend. And it wasn't a big college, and somehow I was good friends with her best friend for like 3 years, but never met her. And my wife walked by, and I was like, "Whoa, who's that?" And her friend Tira says, "Don't bother, you're not her type." And I was like, "Screw that, I bothered." And so a couple of weeks later, we're dating, and I said, Tira said I wasn't your type. I was like, "What is your type?" And she's like, "Tall, ripped guys like Justin Timberlake." I was like, "What am I, short, fat? Come on, kicking the nuts."
Were you bodybuilding at the time? Like,
Yeah,
were
I
you
was
big at the time?
fucking jacked. I mean, it was after football. This is when I got into bodybuilding. I mean, I was probably fat. I mean, I thought I was perma-bulk. I thought I was good. I mean, I look good with my sleeves rolled up. But
If there's one thing I can tell you about being like me, where you're 6'7", 300 plus, it's a small niche demographic of women that fucking love that. It's like 90% of the female population is like, no, monster, way too big. But that 10%, it's just absolute. They love it.
fervent.
So
Yeah, I'm middle of the road. I'm like 5'11", a little pudgy. If I'm on, I can pull it off. But apparently, if I'm
Now you are, but
Yeah.
you used to be like.
yeah. Well, I wasn't ripped like Justin Timberlake, but I held my own.
I don't think Justin Timberlake was ever ripped.
That's my wife. That was her type, tall, ripped guys like Justin Timberlake. So I've hated that fucker ever since. If I ever see him, I'm gonna snap his little arms. Actually, I'll probably ask him for some party drugs. Doesn't he in trouble for like driving all stoned or something? You guys remember that story?
he got in trouble recently for something. I can't remember if it was a DUI, if it was a drug thing.
Yeah, well, I just saw like the photo, and his eyes were like peeled back, like he was on some riding the white lightning.
Why not? I would be too.
Oh man, yeah. If I was worth $300 million and everyone wanted to bang me, I'd be uncontrollable.
I love when people talk about pop stars and professional athletes, like they can't believe they lost all that money, and I'm like, oh, I can totally understand.
Oh yeah.
I would have been that idiot. I made a bunch of money in my 20s and blew it all.
Yeah, I
So
made like $9 in my 20s. I blew that too.
I rode the mortgage market when it was hot,
Oh yeah, that's I met a guy.
and then lost everything.
I met a guy who lost like 4 million in the dot com bubble playing options. He made like 4 million, and then over the course of like a year and a half, and then lost it in like 2 months.
Yeah, I went from a 7-figure net worth to zero in like 6 months.
Justin, do you still do any of the? You were putting out some content. It might have been last year, talking about just like
Investing.
investing, all that.
I love doing that. I love like price modeling. I love looking at a business. I have a full Tesla model. I haven't done it in a couple of years, where I look at I take all their sales, what their margins are, and then I try to take like different PE ratios and what I think future valuations would be, and I build a model out and I do like a base plan. I love doing. I just don't have time right now with the supplement company. Yeah, I mean, and then it's awesome, but at the end of the day, if you just you're 90% of even professional investors do worse than the S&P 500. So at the end of the day, if you just put all your money in SPY or VOO and maybe triple Q, you're going to be better anyways. But I rode the recent GameStop in May, and when John Revis at Toronto, I was up over $100,000 on calls for GameStop, and I didn't know it. I was backstage with John, and by the time the show was over, it was back down. The price went up
Oh
to
my
like
God.
$80 a share or something. I was in at like 19 or 20. And then, or it was almost 100 a share. I don't remember. But by the time I got back to the hotel room, I'm getting all these texts from a buddy who invests also. He's like, dude, check out GameStop. And then by then it was back down to like 30. But I did some videos on that. I still killed it. I sold calls for like $8,000 a month, because these, like Reddit bros the premiums were just so outrageous because they all thought it was going to go to the moon. So I'd sell these way out of the money calls for outrageous price, where the stock would be like $30 a share. I'd sell at one point I was selling 99 or $90 calls or $100 calls, and like at like $500, meaning people were expecting the stock to go to $105 a share when it was like $30 a share, and these were like 45 days out. It was ridiculous. You could see why. They always say, smart money always wins. It's like not even smart. You find something like that, and there's like these young kids who just get so excited thinking this, stock's going to move. And I did a couple of videos on that. I actually used margin on it to buy a bunch and sell a bunch of calls, and I pulled out completely. I bought some back when it dropped down to like, I don't remember, 20 or 1975 a share. I know it's been back up over 30, but I have like 400 shares, I think, now. But I don't really look at it anymore. But I'm just sitting on it. I'm going to wait for that roaring kitty to make another live stream, and every Reddit bro is going to buy shares like crazy again.
Yeah.
I might be the only person that watched that Tesla video, by the way.
Oh, yeah, my Tesla video, did you? Yeah,
Yeah.
dude. I was. I mean, it's gone off this year, but my base model was pretty accurate. I think I had the Tesla robot for 2027 is when I really had it taking off. I think I had full self-driving being, like the driverless car for 2025. I don't know if that's still on track, but have you seen the recent videos of the robots, the Tesla bots?
Yeah, they're crazy.
Oh my God, that's remarkable. Yeah, it's it's like iRobot. They're incredible.
Well, they what did I read that there was I watched Noah Haral Uvari. I'm probably slaughtering his name. The guy that wrote *Sapiens*, but he wrote a book on AI. But he was talking about how he was on Lex Friedman recently, and he said by 2015 there will probably be as many robots in the world as there are humans.
Not far off. It's going to be
2050.
Yeah, oh, for sure. I would say, well, you have the full self-driving. It's getting so
Yeah.
good now. I mean, it feels like a real. I have trusted it to drive me home when I shouldn't have driven. I went to see some buddies in college, and I just like decided at like 3 a.m. that I didn't want to sleep there, and so I hopped in the car and pressed my address, and it drove me all the way into the garage. 3 hours through construction at night in the rain. It's unbelievable now.
What are the DUI laws if you're on the self or the auto
Yeah,
drive
you're
mode and
fucked. You're screwed. So
yeah.
I was sucking on pennies, so my breath didn't smell. I think I was safe. I'm kidding, but yeah, it's like when you if you're riding a horse, I think you don't get a DUI because the horse knows their way home. So hopefully I could pull. I mean, I would just pull that and say, it's like a horse. Oh, you can get a DUI. Joshua Perry knows. Someone's got experience. Tell the story. But I think, if you think about it, it's really. I remember reading. I've said this 100 times, but Richard Feynman is my favorite physicist. He invented Feynman diagrams. He won a Nobel
some
Prize.
of his books.
Yeah, sure you're joking, Mr. Feynman. It's not a physics book, but it's one of my favorite books, just about his life. But in one of the excerpts there, he talks about when mechanical calculators came out. And they thought it was, interesting, but they would never trust it. They would play with this calculator, and they wouldn't trust the computer, so they would do the math themselves to see if the computer got it right. Which seems funny now because we would never trust our own math. We trust the calculator. The same with automatic transmissions. For years, dragsters or guys who built race cars were like, I'm not trusting some computer to do the shifting for me. No one's shifting them. No one's running 7-second quarter miles shifting with their hand anymore. And it's the same thing with computer-driven cars. We think I'm not going to trust some computer to drive for me. Well, my grandkids are going to be like, you used to drive around 5,000-pound metal contraptions at 80 miles an hour and you steered it. They'll think it's insane that we used to just drive cars around.
I read one of his books on computation, on computer science. I can't remember. There was one also about quantum computing that was like 30 years old, man, or 40 years old. It's old, and they're like talking about here we are now.
Yeah, well, they're getting close. We had a couple colloquiums when I was in grad school on quantum computing, and it's just and they say they will. It's so tedious, but when we get a quantum computer, it's going to be more advanced than it's going to have more compute than every computer ever made up to that point, which is absurd because I think they're up to like 10 to the 18 computations per second on the NVIDIA GPUs now, which is 10 to the 18 is absurd. There's like 10 to the 40 protons in the universe. I don't think there's 10 to the 18 stars in the universe, and they're doing that per second. And a quantum computer will blow that out of the water. I mean, it'll just be the things they'll be able to do with it are just so obscene.
Couple that with AI. Mario says, "Hey boys, struggling with libido, nothing with Proviron, Arimidex, Caber, trying to prop for potential SHB. I don't know what he's saying here, SHBG, but nothing."
I think pregnenolone. Yep. I mean, I've seen good response with pregnenolone. If Caber doesn't do it. If Proviron and Caber, you might be bottoming out your estrogen too much if you're on Proviron and Nadex at the same time. But I mean, yeah, that's tough. Caber's always.
The rule of thumb I've seen
this. I always see Caber so casually tossed around. I mean, for something that's like such a playing with dopamine to that extent, like what's the risk of playing with cabergoline? Like everyone just casually uses it with track.
Back-to-back ejaculations is the risk. What's
dopamine
awesomeness?
I
mean, you're talking about Parkinson's drug.
Yeah, look up dopamine agonist withdrawal syndrome. You'll never want to take that shit.
Oh, I never have, but I imagine it's not pleasant. Was it like skin crawl? I mean, that's like what's a common, is a tramadol? That's a norepinephrine. That's a painkiller, but it's got some norepinephrine with it. If you ever read the withdrawal stuff for that too, anything that messes like with the dopaminergic pathway, well, I mean, like crack cocaine, is dopaminergic. The withdrawals for those are like supposed to be terrible.
I mean, you can make yourself permanently depressed and suicidal from dopamine agonist withdrawal syndrome with Caber. And you know what the funny thing is like everybody's like panicky and worried about prolactin being high, and I look at hundreds of blood panels and I almost never see high prolactin on blood panels. Like never.
Oh yeah, I see it fairly often. I mean,
Do you?
not as common as like people probably think, but yeah, I see it. I don't know.
I
I don't know what often is. You know, I see probably it's probably not that. Probably like 1 in 20, maybe 1 in 30. But I see
yeah.
it. You know, yeah.
Most of the time when I see it, it's people that are using kratom. It's usually
Oh, no
kratom.
kidding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
kratom will blow it up.
Kratom's. That's I can't believe that stuff is legal. I had a client
Well, they were
like
trying to ban it.
I had a client legitimately. I want to say that Mario. There's one thing I can't even think of the name right now. It's used. It's that one. Have you guys ever heard that crocodile drug from Europe from Russia where people's skin's peeling off when they? There's a
No.
there's an anti-serotonin antidepressant that basically most antidepressants are like they increase serotonin, they decrease the reuptake of it, so more serotonin stays in the synaptic cleft. But there's one that actually does the opposite. And I can't think of the name, but if you look up something like serotonin blocker, anti-serotonin, the theory was that kind of the opposite approach was that serotonin is like the love hormone, but dopamine and the norepinephrine pathway is like the really euphoric pathways. And so they made this drug to block serotonin, and it does work apparently. But one of the side effects is like raging boners because serotonin is kind of because serotonin isn't prolactin, but like when you finish, when you ejaculate, you get this rush of prolactin, and that's what causes the refractory period. And dopamine is anti-prolactin, but if you block serotonin, it kind of has the same effect of that. You proportionally, your dopamine is sky high in proportion to prolactin, or I mean in proportion, yeah. And so they made this drug, and apparently it worked fairly well for depression, probably because you're all dopamine. It's like you're living on cocaine mentally at that point. But the side effects were like constant boners. Even after you finish, it doesn't go away.
I think it was you who put P5P on my radar for
Yeah.
anti-prolactin, Justin. Like, how effective do you think that is? I mean, just being an over-the-counter.
I think you got to take quite a
supplement.
bit. But I had a client with elevated prolactin who was doing, I want to say 500 or 600 milligrams a day of P5P, and it came down. I mean, his prolactin was like in the 20s, I think, and it came down to like under 10, or maybe I don't remember the exact. But it came. I mean, it went from high to right in the middle of normal, pretty much. But he was doing quite a bit. I actually put a formulation together for a like a anti-estrogen, like a legal one, and P5P's in it for the prolactin aspect.
Have you guys ever seen a bodybuilder or know a client develop a prolactinoma?
No, I don't think I have.
I had heard just some people, I had heard anecdotally about prolactin becoming such an issue that, you start developing essentially that benign
Definitely.
tumor that just keeps releasing the prolactin. I
I
don't know
think
if you
that's
guys
it.
had.
Yeah, I've seen pituitary tumors in guys a lot of times that have high prolactin, like if it's chronic.
Oh yeah,
I think marijuana can also cause it too, right? High
yeah,
prolactin.
yeah. I think so. Yeah, kratom. I had a client on kratom completely lose their mind. I mean, like be like involuntarily committed. I mean, he was taking like 100 grams a day or something, and I watched it unfold during like off season of prep where he started using it. Then he was using it a lot, and he had like a couple of businesses, or he opened a gym or something, and he just kept taking more. And then his check-ins kept getting wilder and wilder, and then his show or his prep, and like he just like he went off the deep end, and ever since then I have not been a fan of kratom because I think you get the I think you build a tolerance so quickly to it, and it's an opiate, it's like taking Vicodin, you take Vicodin, you feel great, but like with kratom, to keep that feeling, you got to keep taking more, and then the anxiety starts hitting hard. I'm not a kratom expert at all, but I want to say like I think around 10 grams a day is when people like you get some anxiety can get pretty bad. But this guy was doing a lot, and it kept building up because he wanted that opiate buzz. You feel great. Like anyone. Well, Johnny played football. You get injured, you go and see the doc. And we used to. That's where I learned about tramadol because we we used to get these packets. We called them floaters. They were 4 pills in a packet, and they had butterflies on them. And you take them, and you feel like you're floating. So we call them floaters. You know, but I mean, yeah, it's like they're technically downers, but you don't feel down. You know, you're ready to rock. But you can imagine, like,
I've heard kratom kind of touted as like a pre-workout by some people.
because you feel great. I mean, you're high. I mean, it's awesome. You know, I mean, I shouldn't say that. I've had a couple times. I took half
Nubane.
those. What's that?
Nubane. What's it called?
Nubane, yeah, the good old. Oh yeah, I remember those days. That
remember when everybody was
ravaged the
taking that
industry in the
shit?
early 2000s.
Everybody was taking that shit. That, and I think, what was the other one? Dilaudid?
Dilaudid. Oh man, yeah.
Guys were
Yeah,
taking all the
Nubane. Well,
time.
because everyone started convincing themselves that it was a great pre-workout. Yeah, you don't feel anything. You're high as shit. My wife got that with her first birth. She was in so much pain. They gave her half a dose, I remember, and she threw up for like 6 hours. It was terrible.
But it was available. It was available at any supplement store.
Was it?
Yeah,
That's like GHB. When I first started training in like '94, GHB, it was banned, but it was still, they, like, you know how like DMAA, they'd sell it until it ran out. GNC, at my local GNC, still had GHB on the shelves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the football world has been the Wild West with pain killing modalities. I mean, it wasn't that long ago that players would literally just have Vicodin waiting for them in their locker after practice. Now they don't do that.
I played in the late '90s. Just a small school. We called Dr. Joe. I mean, there was like a trash can, like a big 50-gallon drum, basically, just filled with those floaters. You go in with anything, and he'd hand you a handful of floaters, packets of those. And that was when Tramadol first came out. They said it was non-narcotic, which is the worst, because not only is it narcotic, but it works through norepinephrine also. So you get like that. You get like when people stop antidepressants, you get that plus I remember one of the guys I played with, a defensive back, had terrible withdrawals. He tore his ACL, and he would, as much as you wanted. So he'd just walk in and grab him. And I remember he was getting pretty bad on it. And then when they had to stop taking or whatever, he had like withdrawals for like months. He would say his skin was crawling for weeks.
Yeah, it's insane how many opiate addicts came out of football in the late '90s, early 2000s. Like, so many of those players developed just severe narcotic addictions. Now, obviously, I played past that era, but I separated my shoulder in college, and pre-game I would get it's a drug called Toradol, which is very common now. I would get oral Toradol, but then they do a lidocaine injection into the joint. So shoulder was completely numb. I had the oral Toradol in my system, didn't feel anything. And then post game, when all that wore off, I mean, it was just agony. Yeah. And I mean, to this day, my AC joint is just fucked. I can't flat bench anymore because of it. But yeah,
that's crazy. That's like the injection, or what's the? I'm totally blank. Where you don't feel anything. I remember Deion Sanders had a back injury, and they gave him it's just cortisone in his back. And I remember, like, he couldn't walk. They give him cortisone, and one of the first plays, he gets flipped and lands on his head and hops right back up, because you don't feel. It's like he did something happen. You don't know it happened now because you don't feel anything. But when that wears off, you're going to find out what you damaged.
Yeah.
What was it?
I have no experience with ketamine, but I would imagine there's a big difference.
It was in the 2010s, 2015, 2016. I don't remember what it was. It kind of got buried, but there was a study that came out where there was all these retired football players that were showing up with kidney disease in their 40s, and it came from the high dose NSAIDs that they were.
I believe it. Yeah, that
they were giving guys.
Yeah, because that was in the late '90s. They did the COX inhibitors too. I don't remember the names of those now. They cause heart attacks and stuff. What were those? Yeah. They would give those like candy too. Yeah, just good old. Yeah, it's like we trust the pharmaceutical industry. No matter, they fail us on every turn, but every time a new drug comes out, we're like, yeah. It went through trials. It must be good.
They should have just
I don't understand why things like BPC 157 are WADA illegal. Like, why outlaw something that its literally only function is healing?
Yeah, What USADA's the worst. I guess maybe not worse because they just don't allow anything. But yeah, why block something that helps your body heal itself?
You know that caffeine is technically listed as a banned substance per the NCAA.
Caffeine
Like,
is.
Insane.
You can't even avoid that.
Under the stimulant category, caffeine is listed. Now, it realistically, you'd never pop for it. It just wouldn't be concentrated in the sample enough, I guess, unless you hammered a huge dose of it immediately before the testing. But yeah, they have it listed.
That's crazy. Yeah, you can't even avoid that.
Should've
That's
been giving guys
well,
HGH
same with
and
the
tests.
ephedrine. Remember that was like ephedrine's crazy because that you can't get that anywhere. U.S. and Canada, but the rest of the world, you can get crack easier than ephedrine. They completely shut that down. But you used to just be able to go, as an 18-year-old kid, go to the truck stop and get bottles of mini thins. Just no one would bat an eye or rip fuel all the fat burners had it, hydroxycut, all those. The good old days. Those were pre-workouts. You want
What
a
was
pre-workout?
the first pre-workout powder was Agent Orange or something like that, right?
Yeah. I took that for a high school football game. Yeah, what was it? It was something
Dan
orange.
Duchesne. It
Was it
was Ultimate Orange.
Ultimate Orange?
Ultimate
Yeah.
Orange.
Oh
Yeah,
man, because
Dan
I was a
Duchesne.
quiet guy. I was a quiet guy, and I was captain, so I led like all the beginning stuff, and I was always just really mellow. But I remember I took that like a double serving of that, and my ears were pinned back. I was screaming. I didn't know. I never had more than. I don't even know if I had coffee at that point. But I never even had caffeine in my life. I was lit.
You started to say something about Tom Prince, Roman. What were
Oh
you
yeah,
saying?
Tom Prince. Tom Prince told me he was taking at his peak 3 times 8 Advil a day, so 24. 8 in the morning, 8 at noon, and 8 at night.
I believe it. I don't want to say. I have a Tom Prince story with New Bane.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, similar.
Oh.
Like, yeah, I don't know Tom, and Tom's been through a lot, so I won't say it. But
Well, he's dead now.
yeah, good point. Okay, well, I knew his dealer, and I guess he would go. He wouldn't even leave. He would do the first shot before he even left the room. He'd grab it, take his shot, and then get in his car and drive off.
I remember seeing him guest pose at a local show here. I don't know, it was like 2002, 2003. He was one of the largest human beings I've ever seen.
Johnson, that would have been. Did he have cankles at that point? I remember he was in an advertisement for whatever company he was with, and his ankle was wider than his quad. It was like an elephant leg, and that was right before he came out, with his kidney diagnosis. But I never seen edema like that in my life. His leg was straight down, and he had insanely big legs. So you probably had a 34-inch ankle.
I have a picture of it somewhere. I'll have to post it up on Instagram.
His ankle.
Of him guest posing. He may have had the ankles. I remember that. That Lee Priest was there too, and I that was like my first time like seeing a full blown off season bodybuilder, and I was like, oh my god. He was sitting there at a Twin Lab booth eating a bucket of Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yeah, he loved that. Yeah, say it's chicken, right? Chicken and rice, chicken potato.
He was so fat. I got a picture of it somewhere too. I posted it up on Instagram.
I always wonder about that because he was short. Like he'd show those pictures, but it's not like. I guess he probably did lose like 70 pounds. But when you're 5'3", like if you add 30 pounds of fat, it looks like you're a lard ass, and so you can get in shape pretty quick. Like if John added 30 pounds of fat, it'd be like a thin layer spread out over his body. John's like 6'8", for those that don't know.
Cool.
Big boy.
Have you ever had a client with a metabolism that you just got to a point where you had to just start feeding them shit? Just, giving them multiple cheat meals a day type thing.
You're looking at two. Well, Roman, that wasn't a client, but you're looking at two people that had incredible metabolisms. Roman's food intake is legendary.
I can't gain weight, man. I have a heart.
Paul's first prep, I thought Paul was going to fire me. I think I kind of apologized after a show, and I was like, look, just stick with me. We got this figured out now. But Paul is losing like 3 pounds a day. Like his metabolism, I've never seen anything run away like that. The last 2 weeks before the show, he'd check in, and it'd be like, yeah, I'm 194, and he'd check in like the next day, and he'd be like, I'm 186, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on?
I worked with Dennis Wolf once, and we had a similar story. And I told him, look, this is my weight. This is my weight last week, and so on. And he's like, okay, do a full cheat day. Just eat whatever you want the whole day. So I do that, and I keep losing weight, and it goes down. He's like, your metabolism apparently is so fast. It is faster than mine. That can't be. You got to be lying. He told me that's not possible. So it's like, no, I'm not lying.
Especially in prep. Trust me, dude. I'm eating. I'm hungry. I'm not, if it's the off season, I might lie about it. But in prep, I'll eat.
Yeah.
Well, you were giving me unlimited high days on prep. You just told me to eat as much as I could. I hit 2,000 grams a couple times.
Yeah. Well, I was like, I think I said like at least 1,000 grams before a cheat meal, and then have a cheat meal. Yeah.
To what extent do you think a metabolism like that is quote unquote like trainable, and versus just purely genetic?
I think it's mostly genetic. You can definitely train it, and I did a whole series once on building metabolism. I had a client named Adam, and it took like 18 months. But I can use myself as an example. I have a pretty crappy metabolism. I eat like 3,000 calories a day, maybe down to 2,500 on low days right now, trying to get in shape for the Generation Iron stuff. And I think at my peak, it was never amazing, but in the mid 2000s, it would be maybe up to 5,000 a day, 4,500 on a low day. So there's some, but there's no way I could get to like what Roman's doing. No, I don't. No matter how much effort I put into it.
My max 3 days straight before a show was 2,500 carbs.
Each day?
Each day.
That's crazy.
Wow.
Damn.
Well, I was going to say Joe Seaman for the New York Pro. I think we got up to 2,000 a day. He's a big boy. He's close to 300 in shape, but that's about the most I've ever pushed with a prep in a carb up.
That's cool.
Here's a question for you, and I may not word this great, but do you ever see a discrepancy between metabolism and digestion ability? I had my gallbladder removed, and I feel like I've got a very high metabolism that is now, my metabolism exceeds what I can just digest in terms of my stomach. Like, I feel like if I could just digest it, get it into my system, my body would process, assimilate, and vaporize food. I wouldn't get fat, but I just can't eat as much as I used to, purely because it just sits in my stomach.
Yeah, I know. Well, most people, and it's hard to find data on this because I don't know who does research on it. Someone like Lane Norton might have good information on it. I'm not like a metabolism specialist. I don't really read any of the research on that. But I remember reading, or learning that like 5 to 10% of calories don't get absorbed, and then they're like broken down by bacteria in the colon. Right. But then a couple of years ago, I stumbled on a study that showed someone that had 33% of their, or whatever they estimate. I don't know if they had how they even calculate that, but the number was they were only absorbing about 67% of the calories. The other 33% were going all the way through unabsorbed into the colon, where then the bacteria break it down, and they had some gut issues because of that. And so that was my first experience with anything outside of that norm. I always just assumed, you eat 1,000 calories, somewhere between 900, 950 get absorbed. Some amount make it to the colon without being absorbed, and then bacteria breaks that down. But apparently there is a wider margin of error for that than I ever knew. And I don't know more about it than that. It's not my area of interest. But if maybe someone in the listening has some information on that. But and there's also, I've seen countless times, I call it a runaway metabolism. And Paul had that his first show. Something happens where you keep feeding someone, and it's like the more you feed them, it's like a runaway diesel. If you've ever seen where a diesel engine runs away and the turbo starts spinning and you take your foot off the gas, it doesn't matter. It's sucking in air so much that it's turning the engine. And the only way to shut it off is to shut the airflow off to the engine. And that's what I always think when I hear runaway. It's like something triggers where your metabolism's climbing, and I don't know what the mechanism is, but it's like the more you feed them, the worse it gets. However much you feed them, their metabolism just speeds up even faster than that. And I don't know the mechanism for it. Yeah, it's right here.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you can identify in a fat loss phase, like you get to a certain point where it's like, do I keep dieting him harder, or do I attempt to create this runaway metabolism by increasing food?
Well, most
You know
people
what I mean?
try to create it. I mean, most people, that's the goal. Most people can never get to that point. You're just trying to get their metabolism higher. But some people, and I'm sure Roman's one and Paul has been one, where what happened, you try to push food, because the more food you get passed through someone's body and the more nutrients you pass through, it only makes sense that you have a better chance to build muscle. If we need the nutrients to build the muscle. If I can shove more through you without getting fat, great. Well, I don't know how the body's choosing to synthesize new muscle protein. So if we can get way more protein, way more calories through you, we have a more likely chance that some of that's going to turn into muscle. But I don't know what happens. But sometimes 99.9% of people, that's what you're trying to do. But some people, it's like that runaway diesel engine. And I don't know if it's a digestion thing where food just starts getting into the colon. I would say that doesn't seem to be the case, because there doesn't seem to be like gut issues or digestion issues, or you're not shitting your brains out, the people that have that. So I don't know the mechanism, but I would love to learn it.
Yeah.
You know what I think plays a role? The gut microbiome signaling the enteroendocrine cells. They produce things like GLP-1, PYY, stuff like that. That can regulate glucose metabolism, like adiposity and stuff like that. So it wouldn't be a long stretch, I reckon, to assume that some people with really fast or just adaptive metabolisms have just a differently geared gut microbiome. And you can influence that. We know you can eat fermented foods and stuff like that and clean up your diet, or eat like absolute garbage for, say, a year straight and do damage to your gut microbiome. But we don't know enough about it to, I guess, manipulate it consciously.
Yeah, I mean, for me, anecdotally, I know that, from years of eating like a bodybuilder and eating clean, I was able to really improve my metabolism until like 2009. I went back to grad school and I just ate like a normal person, which was, just whatever. And my metabolism really shut down, slowed down dramatic, which was fine. I was in school, I wasn't trying to, but I've never been able to get it back to where it was. And I don't know it would make sense being something like that.
How much of that do you think was a function of decreasing your calorie intake versus probably losing some muscle tissue? I'm assuming you also lost size, weren't training as hard, probably weren't on.
I appreciate it.
At the time.
Yeah, sure, it used to be tight. No, I mean, definitely there was some, because I lost a lot of muscle, and I went off. I didn't even do TRT for a while, and so there was a lot of muscle loss. That would certainly make sense. But I have since I've been larger after that. Like no one really knew because COVID hit, but in like late 2019 through 2020, I got up over 300 pounds, which was larger than I ever was when I competed. I was planning to compete again, but my metabolism never got. I was still eating far less than I did at 275 at the same body fat.
I'll tell you this, it does seem like my metabolism, what I've noticed, like same thing you were saying, Justin, when I go back to just eating like a regular person, it seems to come down. And then like when I'm on contest prep, I don't know what the fuck happens, but it just, like, the deeper I get into contest prep and the higher we push those high days, it just keeps spinning up. It seems like.
Yeah, I wish I knew more about it. I probably should put some time into, studying it, but it's not that common. It's like most people in prep, their metabolism run away. Most people are starving in prep. Most people are hungry the whole time, So it's not like it's, if you're trying to like make the most optimal use of your time as a coach, studying like the rare exception like that is not optimal, because you don't come across it very much. But I wish I did know more about it.
I never got hungry on this prep, but like I just like, I was kind of tired of eating when we got to the end of it. And it was a weird prep because I started, I mean, like my weight just pretty much stayed the same It stayed the same the whole time, and I'm still 250. I just been 250 the whole fucking time. 250.
Well, and you've been eating fairly normal, right? It'll be interesting to see in the next prep how if you
Yeah.
get that same response after, because your metabolism has to be lower, and I would assume there's no way you're eating the same calorie. But
No,
I mean,
don't think I'm eating as much.
yeah, because you say you're eating. Yeah, when I hear what you're eating, it's not very much, right? I mean, you're really not pushing food at all right now, right?
No, I've been eating like 4 or 5 times a day, and usually one of those meals is from Uber Eats or McDonald's, and
Oh man.
and then the other ones are clean. I don't know. I don't know where I'm at. I'd say probably 4,000 calories if I had to guess.
That's good. It's like a happy intake. Like, I mean, I'm comfortable eating that, and anything beyond 4,000 becomes a chore. I don't know about you guys, but I feel like there's that kind of like happy intake where you just, I could do this and not be stressed, but then you get to a point where you have to push food and might be like 6,000-7,000 calories, and it starts causing anxiety, and you think, oh man, I've got to eat my next meal.
I haven't had that experience. It's a dream of mine. I I have an enormous appetite and a terrible metabolism. So I hear these discussions and I just afterwards I cry. But yeah, I mean I don't know. I don't have personal experience with that.
Somebody's talking about your Hit the Rack product.
Yeah, change the topic. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, it's hard to promote because sleep products aren't like people have a limited budget. They're gonna buy gear first and supplements second, and when they buy supplements, their sleep product's probably not the number one. But it really is. It was designed because I hate you take any sleep product and you fall asleep, but you feel groggy the next morning. So it's like, what was the point? I wanted sleep so I had energy the next day. I didn't want it sleep so I just lost all those hours sleeping and still felt tired the next day. So we really put a lot of care and effort into formulating it. Especially, I don't know if you noticed, Twin, when you take it, there's like that you almost feel like sedated. There's about a 20-minute period because it's basically too focused. The first, some of the ingredients in there are focused to putting you in like alpha waves for your brain where you feel sleepy. Most sleep products will have like melatonin or whatever. What's that? Valerian, kratom. I'm sorry.
GABA.
Oh, GABA.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really common.
Things that like GABA kind of makes you sleepy. If you don't take too much though. I've seen people. I remember when One Fast 400. You guys remember that? It turned into a different company. It was like a True Nutrition before they were, and they used to sell gallon drums of GABA. I had a buddy who thought he was taking glutamine, and he took like a whole scoop. Yeah, he went to the ER. They thought he was having a heart attack.
Yeah,
but anyway.
It feels like you get low blood sugar and also you can't breathe at the same time.
He couldn't. Well, he couldn't when the EMTs came. He couldn't remember his name or his birthday or something. I mean, it was like bad. He was like he was not in good shape. But of course, by the time they went in the ambulance, by the time he got to the hospital, it kind of wore off and he was back to normal. And I think he tried to tell him like, no, I think I just took, they're treating him as like a drug overdose. He's like, no, I didn't take anything. I just took I thought it was glutamine, but I don't think it was.
Guys, I'm sorry. It's past midnight here. I got to go.
Yeah, I try to keep a hard limit on an hour because it's Friday night and I know we all have very active social lives. So that's a perfect time to end it anyways. It's 6:30. Thanks for going, Roman. Thanks for showing up. Nicholas, thanks for showing up. Paul, thanks for showing up. I appreciate it.
I guess.
John usually carries these endings, but I'll try it. Thanks everyone for showing up. We'll be back next Friday. What's that?
Subscribe.
Oh yeah. Subscribe, hit the button. Yeah, definitely subscribe. I'm terrible about all that stuff, but we'll be doing this every week, and we got a great group of guys on here. Obviously, this is Goob Platoon signing out.